We all think that building wealth is about these loud, dramatic moments. The big promotion, the lucky stock pick, that one big break. But what if the real secret is a whole lot quieter? Today, we're going to dive into the small, almost invisible habits that quietly build real, lasting fortunes.
And that's the real question, right? Everyone tells you to be consistent, but consistent at what? It's not about just grinding harder. It's about finding the right things to do every single day and then repeating them until they're as natural as breathing. So, let's just bust the biggest myth right out of the gate. The media loves a good story, right? Risky bets, overnight millionaires. It's exciting stuff. But the actual research, like what you see in The Millionaire Next Door, shows the reality for most wealthy people is, well, it's way less dramatic. Wealth isn't built in the headlines. It's built in the quiet, totally unglamorous consistency of daily habits. So to really get this, we're going to break it down into 4 core ideas. First, we'll talk about a crucial shift in your daily awareness. Then, we'll get into why building systems will always beat relying on willpower. After that, we'll tackle the huge choice of buying assets before you buy appearances. And finally, we'll see how just surviving is an incredibly powerful wealth strategy all by itself. Okay, let's start with the foundation. The very first habit isn't even an action, it's a mindset. It's about taking your financial thinking from being a few big events a year to being more like a constant, low-level hum in the background of your daily life. So let me ask you something and be honest with yourself. Is thinking about your finances a big, scheduled event for you? Or is it more of an ongoing, everyday awareness? The answer to that question reveals an awful lot. See, for most of us, financial check-ins are reactive. They're triggered by getting a paycheck or seeing those tax forms or when the car suddenly breaks down. But wealth builders, man, they operate on a totally different frequency. Their financial awareness is proactive. It's baked into the dozens of tiny decisions they make every single day. And that daily awareness will always, always beat occasional effort. And this daily awareness naturally leads to spending with intention. And let's be super clear here. This is not about being cheap. It's about being deliberate. It's about getting into the habit of asking, does this purchase actually move me closer to my long-term goals? Because the data doesn't lie. It's those small, mindless spending leaks that quietly sink the ship of long-term wealth. All right, let's move on to our second big idea, because this builds right on top of the last one. Look, knowing you should save or invest is easy, but actually doing it day in and day out, that's another story. And the reason it's so hard is because you are literally fighting millions of years of evolution. Relying on willpower alone, that's a losing game. And the main culprit is something that psychologists call present bias. Basically, our brains are hardwired for immediate survival. They want the reward right now. That wiring makes the instant gratification of buying something today feel way more real and urgent than some far-off abstract goal like a comfortable retirement 40 years from now. So here's the crucial thing to understand. Your willpower is basically like a phone battery. It starts at 100% in the morning, but every single decision you make all day long, what to wear, what to eat, what to say in that email, drains it a little bit. So by the time you have to decide between saving and spending at the end of the day, you're often running on fumes. And that makes you a super easy target for impulse and emotion. So what's the solution? You take the decision completely out of your hands. The wealthy don't have some secret, superhuman willpower. They just build better systems. By automating your savings, your investments, and your bills, you make the most important financial moves the default setting. Suddenly, consistency becomes effortless because you've taken your fickle, emotional brain out of the equation. Now, this brings us to a massive idea, one made famous by the book The Millionaire Next Door. Most of us, we have this picture in our heads of what a millionaire looks like, right? And almost always, that picture is completely wrong. True wealth isn't about showing it off. It's about owning things. And this slide just lays out the 2 different paths perfectly. When most people get a raise, they fall into this trap called lifestyle creep. Their spending just automatically goes up to match their new income. But wealth builders, they do the exact opposite. They upgrade their ownership. They use that extra money to buy assets that will generate even more income for them. Things like stocks, real estate, a piece of a business. The lifestyle upgrade? Oh, that comes way, way later. And it's paid for by their assets, not by their job. And this quote, this just says it all, doesn't it? For a real wealth builder, the kick they get comes from the internal satisfaction of seeing their net worth grow, not from the external validation they get from a fancy car.
The joy is in the freedom their assets create, not the status their liabilities project.
Okay, so let's recap. You're thinking about money daily, you've built systems to automate the important stuff, and you're focused on buying assets. But there's one more piece to this puzzle, because building wealth is only half the battle. The other half is actually keeping it. And that means you have to learn how to survive the inevitable storms. Now, I want you to look really closely at this chart, because this is one of the most important concepts in all of investing. See those scary red dots? Those show the biggest, ugliest drop the market had at some point within each year. That's the moment of maximum panic. But the gray bars? That's where the market actually finished the year. The takeaway here is absolutely profound. Those gut-wrenching drops are a normal feature of the market, not a bug. The real key to long-term success is just survival, having the strength not to panic and sell during those red dot moments. So how do you make sure you can survive those moments? Well, you protect your downside. You build an emergency fund so you're never forced to sell your investments at the absolute worst time. You use insurance to protect yourself against a catastrophic loss. You avoid silly, reckless risks. And you simply stay invested, understanding that volatility is just the price of admission for long-term growth. So as we start to bring this all together, what's the big takeaway? It's that real wealth accumulation is a quiet process. It's not loud, it's not flashy, and it is definitely not fast. Wealth isn't some event that happens to you. It's an outcome. It is the inevitable result of these small, quiet habits stacked on top of each other. Daily awareness, automated systems, prioritizing assets, and planning for survival. Once you get these things in place, building wealth stops feeling so hard, and it starts to feel inevitable. But that leaves us with one final, kind of provocative question. If we know these habits work, if the logic is so clear, why is it still so damn hard? Why do our own emotions get in the way and sabotage our best financial plans over and over again? Well, we're going to untangle that emotional puzzle in our next explainer. I'll see you then.